Welcome to another episode of the Get There podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Kline. I am here today with Tom Walter with Caliber Homes. Hey. I have actually known Tom for, we're going on like 8 years now, like a really long time. He's a personal friend of mine. We have done a ton of business with each other, both with my projects with home remodeling and office remodeling, in real estate as well. So, Tom, why don't you just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about Caliber Homes?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be here and do this with you. I've seen your last few episodes, and it's kind of fun to kind of jump on with you. So,
absolutely.
So my background is a little bit different probably than most folks that got into this industry. It's I always say I grew up doing construction. That's kind of been my background since I was a little kid. I was literally leveling driveways and laying rock when I was 9 years old. So it's I kind of grew up in it, and that's where I kind of got my initial roots in construction, was growing up remodeling homes all through my childhood. But my path to get to where we are today was different than most people, right? So I kind of took a couple different detours along the way. The longest stop was I spent 8.5 years as a sheriff's officer here in Brevard County. And so I always jokingly say one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to become a cop. And so, and legitimately 6 months later from the time that I woke up that day, I was a cop. I had gone through training, and I was on the road in Cocoa as a sheriff's officer as a young kid. So that was kind of my background. I started there. I did that for 8.5 years. But through that time as being a sheriff's officer, I kind of always knew from day one that it wasn't my long-term career. It wasn't where my heart was at. I knew that even though I had gotten into it after first year, that I could do it, and I felt like I could do it well. I knew I was never going to spend 30 years to do that. It just wasn't where my heart was at. And so after about 5 years, I had this itch, and a couple other things had happened. I got into real estate. And so after getting my realtor's license, I started doing some projects. I got teamed up with the guy that was doing construction. And that's where I really put my foot in the door into actual getting into a real full-time in construction. And so as a realtor, I actually had built my first house with that person. And like everybody, I built that first house. And I was like, I can build a better mousetrap, and that's really what it was. I saw that person, and I partnered with him on my house that I live in today. And even though I love him, respect him, and I care for him deeply, I knew where my vision of how I wanted to build and the process that I wanted to do this thing was different than his process. And so I just took a longer, kind of slower approach to growing my business. And so after that, within about a year, I had opened my company and started doing my first house. So
I love that. Yeah. I want to just touch on it because I feel like your story is, not to say it's the same as a lot of people, but I do feel like it is the same as a lot of people. I think it's almost like being told as a kid, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you say? You say, you want to be a sheriff. You want to be a firefighter. Yep. I was a teacher for 5 years. Yep. Like you're kind of like ingrained of like these people who are in your everyday lives or your heroes that you're like told what you want to be when you're a kid to grow up, and you want to have that duty of your community, serving your community. And then when you go actually
do the thing
into that field, you realize, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So I actually know a ton of real estate agents, other actual loan officers who were nurses, doctors, but teachers, firefighters. I also feel like it's a good community to get started in too, because it's almost like built-in business because you have all of your buddies that are eventually going to want to purchase something. So is that, and I feel like that's what it is. Like you grow up as a kid, like with the duty to do that, and then you do it and you're like, I want more. Like I can't do this for 35 years of doing the same every single day. So
yes, I guess I truly believe, and I've seen it play out in my own life, that life happens in seasons. Yep. And so kind of like I mentioned, like I knew that I would become a cop, and I could have done it for 20 years. I think I could have done it for 20 years, but I knew, and actually my wife was the one that really forced the hand. I tell her this to this day. I was working 7 days a week after I started, two businesses at that point. I had two different companies going at the time, and I was still a full-time officer. And I won't tell the stories as to how that interplayed necessarily, right? But I was working 7 days a week, and I was like, this is not sustainable. Because, I would put on about 13 to 14 hours as an officer, 5 of those 7 days throughout the week, and then I'm working 5 of those 7 days full-time running the businesses. And I was not present, right? And that was one of those key clutch moments where I was actually up for promotion as a deputy, and I was about to take that promotion. My wife looked at me, and she's like, "Hey, you can't do this and do this. You've got to pick a lane because we can't continue this way. It's just not going to be sustainable." And so, actually, truly by the grace of God, that promotion was given to somebody else, and I didn't. And within a month and a half, I think, if that, I was out of the SO. And so I had left the sheriff's office right after that door closed, and then I went full time into my businesses, and been now 8 years doing them full time.
So it sounds like God made the decision for you
Yep,
on what
amen.
was happening,
Yep,
for
amen.
sure. And I always feel like that's good, is like a pivotal moment will happen and you're like, okay, like where it really starts you thinking of what direction you want to go in. I also assume your wife was very relieved, because I can only imagine if I had a husband that was a sheriff and went out every single night to God knows what, like I would not like that either, and would want you to quit as soon as possible. So, so did you guys have, like, what was that discussion with the two of you? I mean, did she try to lean you to getting out of law enforcement, or
No, I mean, in her offense,
wanted you to do whatever you wanted to do?
yeah, I mean, she really just said, hey, you got to make a path. You got to choose a path,
Yeah.
because this is not sustainable. We had 3 kids at the time.
Yeah.
We have 4 now, but they were young. I mean, we had 3 kids under 4, and I was doing all 3 of those things all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it just wasn't sustainable, you know? And she was like, hey, we can't continue on this path, so we have to choose a path. And truthfully, kind of like mentioned, I knew that season of being a sheriff's officer was coming to a pass. There were some different things I got to do throughout my time there, which I loved, and I would do it again tomorrow, because I thoroughly enjoyed investigations and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But there was a door that was closing, and it was closing faster than I think I knew it was closing, and I think I was the one trying to force it open versus just allowing it to happen and allow the Lord to kind of push me out that door and into this path. And now I look back at it these years later, and again, I love them. I still have friends that are in the SO and working as deputies. I love them to death, but I know that's not for me, right? Like I know that I could do 1,000 other things in life, but that season is closed, and I'm not going to go back there, you know?
Yeah.
And this is my new path, you know, for me.
Absolutely. And that time with your kids being little, you just don't get that back. And I would say that's probably my one regret, because I definitely gave 110% to my work, where I gave my family nothing for many years, like it, you know, just grinding it out and working every single day. So the fact that you guys even took time out to know, like, hey, you can't, like, you want to be able to do it all, and it's really hard to do 3 things plus be an awesome husband plus be an awesome dad. So kudos to you for doing that, because I definitely did not do that, and it's my biggest regret for not doing that. Okay, so you said while being a sheriff, you also ran 2 businesses. So was that your real
Realty
estate business and then
construction.
starting to do the build? So what made you interested in real estate to begin with? Like, what was...
I don't really remember who got me necessarily into it. I did have a family friend who's been a realtor for 30 years. And so I had a couple other friends that had jumped into the waters too around that same time as well. So I'm sure that was probably part of it. I don't exactly remember what the spark was that got into real estate. But like everybody, I was just like, well, I can do that. I can sell a house, right?
Yeah.
And it was just during the time where the market was slow and it was not enjoyable. I mean, you and I had conversations where, like, fighting to get a $75,000 loan appraisal on a house, you know, here in the county.
I remember this.
And we're like dying to make, you know, $300, you know, or, you know, I remember chasing a rental, you know, all across Palm Bay, and just couldn't get a loan application approved for those things. And so it was during a tough time. That was when I kind of jumped in the waters. You know, the market was really, really slow post the crash. And so it was just clawing and fighting. But the blessing was through those years of kind of clawing and fighting in real estate to make, honestly, just a few dollars. It really was so tight back then. That's where I got my introductions into construction, into the private investor world and the equity world, all that kind of stuff. And those connections kind of slowly, organically grew, so that when it was time for me to actually start Caliber, I kind of already had like a little back network of people that I knew, landowners and all the different things that kind of helped me to pivot into that next phase.
And that's so important as a builder, I'm assuming, as just having the people that you can't, you know, you're managing everything as a GC, but you don't have the skill set to do everything. So you got to have those people in place that are reliable. I mean, I'm seeing firsthand of, Tom's actually working on a project for me right now. I bought a commercial building, and he has the most amazing people on his team that respond right away. I ended up hiring someone that I've worked with for a lot of times, and it just didn't go as planned. So leave it to the professionals and the people there next time. Okay, so as far as getting into building, I'm like dying to know a little bit about that. So you had paired up with a builder at first.
I did, yeah.
How many builds did you do with that builder before you were like, I can do it better? Like,
Well, so I had kind of two different phases. So I had paired up as an agent with someone, and I was like, hey, I'll just sell your product, right? Like, I'll just come in, I'll support you, I'll sell your product. They had been around for a couple years, but they're now a large company in the area, and they're amazing and they do great stuff. And I refer them to this day because things that I build are different from what they build, right?
Yeah.
And so clients will call me, hey, can I build this for me, Tom? And I'm like, no, I can't, but this fella can, right? And so, so I parted with them as just as a realtor because we had done my house, and I was like, okay, well, hey, and so that just again grew through a relationship, and so we became friends, and so I had brought him some clients and had helped him kind of grow some custom homes down there in the South County. And so we started with them, and it was really through that. And honestly, I think he would say the same thing as well, as I knew that I could do this on my own, and I knew that I could start my own company to do it. So I actually had brought in another partner who was a licensed contractor at the time because I hadn't gotten through my testing yet. And so I partnered with him, and we built 2 spec houses in Palm Bay. And so really I went through that process, right? And it was long and it was tough and it made no money at all for a whole year.
Yeah.
But again, market was still slow. And so, but that was really, really important to me to build these 2 spec houses from ground up, because even though I had a background in construction, I had never done the full thing start to finish, right? I'd never gone from land development and permitting and all these different things that we do today. Like now it's nothing, right? But back then it was this big eye-opening, well, what do you mean I got to get 3 different permits to build this house, from the city of Palm Bay and things like that. And so I took those projects from conception to completion, and that was hugely critical for me in my growth process. And so it was a lot of OJT. I don't pretend like it wasn't, but I did 2 projects with him. And then like everything in business, sometimes there's things that are good and there's things that are right. And then there's things that are like, okay, this was just, again, for a season, right? This was a 12-month term, and I knew that I needed to get my own license and I needed to get my own training and to get my own. So that's when I got my residential contractor's license. After that first year, I got my residential contractor's license, and then kind of we separated our ways after those 2 projects, and then I just went on building on my own.
I love that. I love first 2 points that you made talking of like not being scared to do it. Like you didn't even have all of your things in place, but you were like ready to go and get it done. And I think that's, everybody wants everything to fall into place first, where if you just go and do it, either A, it's going to be a lesson learned. If you mess up, you don't know what you don't know until you start going, or it's just going to, enhance you going forward, and you're going to say, okay, I want to go this direction, or no, I don't want to go this direction. So
absolutely.
I just like that you just did it and figure it out as you go, because I'm a figure it out as you go kind of person.
I mean, for me, it wasn't about like, and everything has a financial aspect to it, right? Like we're doing this to make a living for our families. That's why we do these things, right? But that first year I knew was, hey, I need to learn how this mousetrap is configured and what pieces this puzzle come together so you can be successful, right? And those first 2 projects, I don't know that I made $1, to be honest with you, on them, right? Because it was still a slow time in the market. And even though you built a good product, the market wasn't healthy at that time, And so, I mean, we spent all of it, plus I had to get private equity because I became from a cop, right? So I had no money in the bank at all, right?
Yeah.
So I brought private equity into that, and that was an expensive lesson to learn, and never do that again. And so through those processes, that's where I just learned those things. And it was really about working for an entire year for really nothing, but just to learn, hey, what is it these next phases require? Okay, if I'm going to build in this area, what is required to build in this area? But now, right after those 2 houses, I jumped completely to the other side of the county and built in Merritt Island. And it was like, okay, well, that's a completely different process to building in Palm Bay.
Yeah.
And then I went to Cocoa and built in Cocoa. And then I went to Melbourne and built in Melbourne. And so you just had to learn along the way, okay, well, what are these different municipalities requiring? And how do you do this successfully so that way the project actually rolls without a hitch?
And it takes a lot of research, just even with my commercial building in the city of Melbourne. Like, I want to put in a parking lot, and I'm trying to figure out all the ways I can configure it on my property. And there's just so many rules. Like, okay, the city of Melbourne, you have to have 14 feet clearance for a drive-through to, like, so I'm assuming it's different for every single city. So you have to do a ton of research when you're doing that. I want to go back to, because I always feel like, the number one thing for any new business owner are the funds to start your business. Sure. So what did that look like for you? You mentioned private equity. Like, what did you do to find someone, who would be willing to invest in you? I'm sure, and then kind of tell us about the process of looking, finding, what you learned, what you didn't learn from doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to those first couple projects, they were spec houses, right? And so we didn't have a buyer lined up. We had just worked through initial house plan. And so it was really selling a vision. Hey, I want to build this thing. This is going to be my ROI. This is how we're going to sell it for. I'll market it throughout construction. And so again, through that real estate connections, I was able to kind of team up with a group. They still exist today. Higher than interest rates than you like, right? That's part of the game.
There's 10%.
Oh yeah, even back then when it was 2.4 in a house, it was still 10%. And but I partnered with them, and they, partly because of me and partly because of the business partner that I had that had his license, he'd have been around for a decade in construction. And so those were the two acts of grace where I had him in my back pocket. So he was giving me kind of that stability that I was a new guy to the game and I'd only been in it for a few months and they didn't know me from Adam. So between his background in the construction industry and then just kind of my drive to make it happen, they were willing to invest in us, and we got $300,000 and some odd in a loan and private equity at 10% on a monthly rate. It was
so the pressure to
rough.
sell the house.
Oh yeah, $3,000 a month in interest only.
The pressure to sell the house was on. Well, awesome. And how many times did you use them to finance builds? Like, did you keep?
No, I only did it one time.
Okay. Yeah. So then, how did you fund? If you didn't make that much money off for your first one, then what did it look like funding your
the next ones?
Yes.
So I learned my lesson that spec house construction was not for me.
Okay.
So I did those first two, and I've never done one since.
Okay.
And again, not everybody has that same path. And I don't even know, like looking back, I probably would tell myself back then, do it again. Because eventually, now today, the rates aren't as bad, right? The more tenured you are, the more you do.
Wait, what did you just say?
Today, the rates aren't as bad
as they used to be, right?
Right.
So today's buyer needs to know that. So.
Yeah, I mean, because but it's true though. And the more that you get into it, you'll see that hey, those rates are fungible. And once you have a process and a system, I could do it again and do it again and do it again, and be more successful at it. So the hesitancy that I had back then to ever do it again was, I was paying $3,000 a month on an interest-only note for two houses that I didn't know if they were going to sell.
Yeah.
And then I ended up taking contracts that were below what the market would allow for the house because I was so nervous to sell these things. I was like I know what's in my bank account, and that $3,000 a month is going to run out really, really fast, And so I didn't do them again with them because of that. That was that biggest thing. It was probably a fear factor more than anything else, if I'm being honest with myself.
Yeah.
But again, by grace, through that process and through my real estate connections, I was able to get into custom homes. And so that's where I really springboarded me into custom construction. And so again, totally different ballgame because now I have a client from day one versus never having a client. I'm just working for myself.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into custom construction, learned all about how the lending requirements are for those and how to stipulate a package to get a construction home loan done and CP financing and all those fun things. And so I jumped full stream, kind of switched gears and went full into CP financing and kind of changed my path that way.
Yeah. I think it's a smart way to do, especially if you're a smaller builder. I mean, obviously most lenders, when you go through that approval process, need a certain amount of builds being completed, but then that way you're not putting the financial burden on yourself and your family, you're putting it on
the banks.
Someone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if anything does happen, technically the bank owns it at that point in time. You don't own it anymore. So smart move. So how many homes have you constructed?
A lot.
I know.
A lot. I don't know exactly the number these days. All right. So
that means
I'm
it's
sure,
so many that you're not keeping track anymore. I love that.
Yeah, it is. And so things change, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. But new homes construction, I'm not sure exactly how many I built from ground up, but I've done hundreds and hundreds of projects of all different shapes and sizes and things like that.
Oh, I love it. So if we're going to talk about that, because I know we've had the conversation. So, and one of my questions that I usually ask anyone I sit down with is, in your business, like what was a pivotal moment where you're like, okay, this isn't working anymore. I'm going to go this direction. Because I do feel like now you're kind of doing more remodeling type of rebuilds like that. So can you just talk about that transition? And
for sure. Yeah. So to this day, I still call myself a custom home builder. That's what we do. I just finished one up this year and I love it. I thoroughly enjoy ground up construction. I will till the day I die. But for me and my clientele, and where I would say my people, right, kind of that come to us, our ground pool, if you will, of those that could build homes and the people that I was working with, it just kind of dried up, right?
Yeah.
And so back in, I believe it was the end of 2022, and I've told the story a few times now, and I kind of will tell it again because it's just the way it was, is that it was at the end of 2022, and I was just kind of going through some prayer time and some study, and I just felt in my spirit like, hey, something's not right. Something's not healthy. And I don't know what it was. I had no clue why I was feeling that way, and because we had just gotten through COVID, and that's a whole nother story altogether. We could touch on another time, but COVID was long. It was 2.5 years of building houses for free. I mean, to this day, I tell the story. I mean, I built a house and paid them $15,000 to move into their home, because the cost to construct was higher than what we had sold the house for.
Yeah, that time frame where you had them under contract, and in that 12-month. The prices of everything just
skyrocketed.
Yes.
It was tough. And it was from 2020 to the end of 2022. But the weird thing about it in this area is that we were so busy, and so we were losing our shirt on projects that we had already contracted, but it was just the phones kept ringing and everyone wanted to build, and land was still affordable, relatively affordable in this area. And so we were still super busy. But as the year was coming down to a wind, I just could tell in my spirit, like something wasn't right. And that there was a shift that was about to happen. And about 6 months later, all the contracts that we had to build these houses, the rates had jumped from 3.5 to 7.5. Just like that.
No one qualified
and
anymore.
No one qualified.
I'm reliving nightmares right now. So.
It's true. I mean, I'll never forget, I had a client, and she had come to us, and we were going through her design, and we designed her entire house. It was ready to go into septic permitting. It was like a $600,000-$700,000 project. It was nice house. It was great on the water. It would have been a beautiful thing. But the time that we had turned around and she was actually ready to pull the trigger on her financing, the rate had jumped so high and her income hadn't changed. She could only afford like $375,000-$400,000. She had lost like $200,000 or $300,000 in buying power. Because her rate approval had just skyrocketed during that time. And we just saw it over and over and over again. And so kind of during that prayer time, I was like, I got to shift my focus. And so even though we were busy and we had 6 houses being built and we had about 6 that were ready to pull the trigger on permitting, I told my team, I was like, hey, something's not right. I'm going to really readjust my focus. I'm going to focus on remodels. I'm going to focus on renovations. I'm going to kind of rebuild my network in that way. Because I always used to say that remodels were something that I enjoyed doing, but it was kind of a pet project on the side. So I do 1 or 2 at a time here, but really my main focus was new homes, because I was a custom home builder, right? And had that tag, and that was important to me, And so but during that time, I was like, hey, something's got to change. And within 6 months, all those contracts had died up. And then within a few months later, all those active projects were done and built. And we weren't building any new homes. There was just nothing there. And every phone call that we would get to build one, inevitably it wouldn't work with financing. It wouldn't work with the market. Something wasn't right, and it just wasn't sustainable at that time. And so we shifted our focus. And by the grace of God, that 6 months happened. And within another 6 months, I mean, we were really, really busy on remodels.
And so, I think, and that's one good thing to say is trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, there's a reason, and you need to look in an analysis of whatever industry you're in and doing. Like when it's shifting, realize that it's shifting. I think people get so focused of like, no, I want to be a custom home builder. That's what I want to be known as, where it can almost be detrimental to you. It's almost like your ego getting in the way versus, hey, I need to pivot and change, which is any successful entrepreneur, that's what they do, is see the changes coming and try to get ahead of it. Because exactly after COVID, either A, people were staying in their homes and remodeling them because everybody was stuck inside too. But then also all of these people got amazing 2-3% interest rates. Most people aren't moving anymore. They're going to stay in their home and they're going to spend money on, renovating. Or even now, people are looking for deals. Like the market's changing here. They're looking for deals. They're looking, and any home I've ever bought has been a foreclosure. That needs all kinds of work done. And really, you're doing just as much work. I know in my 2 projects, we've basically built a whole new place. So just knowing like when to pivot and that it's not a failure. I also feel like when people find that it didn't go how they planned, like seeing it as a failure instead of a win and like moving in that direction. So did you ever feel that way? Like, did you feel like you let people down or yourself down because you're not doing what you intentionally set out to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's a point of all of us that would, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're like, yeah, but I was supposed to be this, right? And I always say that there's kind of a prestige. It's like, oh, you're a custom home builder, right? It's like you're elevated above the rest of the guys down there, right? Kind of thing. And that's great. We still are to this day. It's just now I start with 4 walls and put 4 walls back up, right? And so it's just a change in my mindset. But truly, in all reality, it's my belief in business is I'm here for the long haul, right? My goal is to be here in 10 years. I tell clients all the time, they'll come to me with a remodel. They're like, hey, well, we just don't know if it's right for today. I'm like, call me in 5 years. Lord willing, I'll be here in 5 years doing the same exact thing and building it for you. I don't care if it's to this year. Just do it in 5 years. Let's do it in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And my goal is to build a business that's sustainable for the long haul and it's healthy, And that to me was more important. It doesn't matter about what we're doing necessarily. It's the fact that we're healthy, right? I've got a team of 9 people just in-house, right, under my payroll. And I always say I worry about their mortgages and the food on their tables and their kids and their families. The
responsibility that you feel as a business owner of what you do and the decisions you make affects so many people. Like that keeps me up at night.
All the time. Absolutely.
So I completely get that. So I want to go back to, you said your first couple of deals, like you made no money whatsoever. And in fact, you even had deals where you had to pay out. Like what made you want to continue going? Like, most people would do the 2 first deals and they've lost money. We're like, I can't do this. Like I'm a total failure. Like what was your mindset of still wanting to move forward, even though it might not have been profitable for you, but you wanted to keep going anyway?
I think, and I say this humbly, it doesn't necessarily come across that way. I'm just not money driven. Right. Yeah. And so I just believe that money is a byproduct of the things that we do. And if you do things well, then the financial reward comes with it, right? And that's across any business, any spectrum, any industry. If you do things well, right? If you're fair, you're righteous, you're honest, and you have good integrity, those things just come naturally as a byproduct of good work, right? And so I had a drive to do something different, right? And that, to this day, even now, 8 years later, my shift is I still want to do something different, right? I know in a few years from now, I probably won't be doing everything I'm doing today, right? Because even what I build and how I build today, how I built your office building, I wouldn't have built it 5 years ago that way. Yeah. I've completely changed my mindset, And so I just have this drive and this intrinsic motivation to do something a little bit different and a little bit better. I don't care if people know my name. I don't care if I'm well known or any of those things don't matter to me. I just want to know that the things that we do are better than the average, right? We just say, we look at what is acceptable, and what is acceptable to me is unacceptable because there's something better that can be done. And a lot of times it's for a very similar price point, right? It might cost a few dollars more, but it's not costing you 10x more to get it healthy, right? And so now my drive, my motivation, I want to build healthy homes, right? I want to build long-term homes. I want to build homes that people feel safe in, right? Those are things that matter to me, right? Yeah. It's not just about, turning over a project and getting it done as fast as possible. Those things are valuable. I want things to be pretty and aesthetically pleasing, but I want it to be healthy. I want it to know that when you live in that space, you feel well, right? Those are the things that drive me. And even back then, I feel like I saw the same thing too as well. I just didn't have the knowledge base to put it to words that I do today.
Yeah. And you wish a lot of home builders would put that feeling and wanting to do things in a certain manner and build a healthy home, because I hear so many horror stories of new builds that have ruined people's lives, that they've owned it for 6 months and it already is covered in mold. Like, it is insane what some of these builders do, where they just put profit over people. And because even with AI coming in and all of these things of how everything's going to change, but what can't be replaced is people who care about people and the involvement that you have, and even creating a community where you get the reputation, where everybody knows, I know I can trust you. I remember we were a little bit delayed and I was having a conversation with someone and they're like, well, why don't you just see if you can hire somebody else? No, I will pay 10 times as much to have Tom handle it, because I know it's going to be taken care of. I know that you care about the way that it looks, that you care about me, and you're going to do right by me, where that's so hard to find, especially in the construction business. Usually you hear about contractors that take money and you never hear from them again. So for me, that's worth its weight in gold, knowing I'm working with someone that I can trust, that does operate from integrity and all of that good stuff. And I wanted to share a story because I mean, it has to do with us and talking about like God moments and where like you just realize like, okay, everything was meant to be, but it's just a really cool thing. So I had been looking for a commercial space for quite some time. I ended up like as a last resort of like, I just need to buy something. So I ended up putting an offer in on a property. Really didn't want it. Didn't really want it. I just wanted to own something and stop paying rent for it. So I put in this offer, and this property had been listed for like a year and a half, like some like ridiculous amount of time. And of course, right when I put my offer in, it's like, oh, well, we have another offer too. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So I'm like in this bidding war with this person and finally like, okay, I'm done. But the property that I ended up buying was my uncle's property. His daughter was not ready to sell it. He had passed away and she was very emotionally attached to the building. So as a last ditch effort, when I wasn't able to obtain this property, I was like, just call in Julian, let's see if she's ready to sell. And lo and behold, she was ready to sell. So I was able to get this family property that's in smack dab downtown Melbourne, exactly where I wanted to be. And of course, I hire Tom as my contractor, and we are in my new office talking about what we're doing. And Tom is like, oh yeah, I just bought a new commercial building as well. And I was like, oh my God, congratulations, like where at? And he literally looks at me, and he was the person I was bidding against on the other building that I really didn't want. And I literally got chills, and I was like, this is so unbelievably crazy. And it just let me know, because I was having doubts on the property that I did purchase because it needed a whole lot of work. It's a historic building. So just the fact that that even happened, it just made me feel so like relieved and knowing everything was working out the way that it was supposed to be. So just, I had to share that God moment there. That
awesome.
was super duper awesome. So, okay. So as far as now, we're going to probably just be sticking with doing the home renovation. I feel like, I mean, you're a pretty busy guy. So I feel like that's,
We are, yeah. I mean, we're blessed. I mean, I get asked all the time, "Hey, how's business?" Right? How's business?
Yeah.
And we're busy, right? I don't pretend like we're not. I hate the word busy as an adjective to life. I hate it to my core.
I know.
I try so hard not to utilize it because inevitably, even in the cheesiest of sense, right, we are so blessed to do what we do, and because around, not everyone's busy, right? Not everyone. It's a shifting market, right? New construction is struggling. Production market's struggling. I know guys that are supervisors being laid off because a lot of these different production guys in the area have closed their doors, or we had a big influx in Brevard County, and they left Brevard County already because it was just oversaturated. And so I'm very thankful that we are as busy as we are, and we're very blessed to do it. I've shifted a little bit. I also got my general contractor's license too as well. And so kind of forward into commercial construction. That was always one of my heart's desires, was to do that too as well. And this year has been kind of cool. Even just this week, I secured 2 commercial renovations contracts this week. And so,
well, you're excellent at it.
And I do. I love it. It's a cool, different little foray into it. Like everything else, a ton more rules and a ton more requirements.
My
and
heart
new
can't
things.
take any more commercial real estate. I'm done after this purchase. So
it's definitely different. Yeah, 100%. And so yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I think the next few years are going to be just continuing to build a healthier, remodel addition. That's our big focus right now, is remodels and additions and renovations, and doing those well and efficiently. That's kind of what my heartbeat is, and introducing as much build science into those projects as humanly possible to help these folks. That even if I'm only doing a master bathroom, that master bathroom is watertight and it's clean and it's healthy. And just recently in my own house, which is not that old, it's less than a decade old, I had to gut my entire bathroom because the science and the technology that we utilized to build the house then was not, plus the manpower back then was not what I would do today. And it caused mold in my kid's bathroom. So I ended up just gutting that whole bathroom and remodeling that entire space to make it healthy. And now today it's healthy and it's watertight and it's airtight and it's efficient and all those different things. And so really, that's kind of one of my motivations now, is to make really healthy remodels. And if we're going to touch a space, it's going to be healthy, right? Yeah. It's going to have shooter waterproofing, right? It's going to have, different methods of water control and airtightness on the outside of the envelope, things like that. And so that's kind of what my desire is, and kind of taking that into commercial. And then eventually, I think over the next 5 years, I have this longing drive to get back into new construction, but to do it differently again, even from what I've done in the past. And so I really want to believe in elevating build science and new construction in this area. So taking a holistic approach to a new construction home and building the healthiest, smartest, well-breathing home that we can in this area, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just a different clientele. And in the areas kind of, I always say Florida's behind the 8 ball in construction. We're somewhere between 5 and 10 years behind the rest of the market nationally. And I see it kind of across the board in all different spectrums. And so the market really isn't here where it is in Austin, Texas, or even in Massachusetts. The science and technology that we're incorporating in those areas has not really come full stream into this area yet. And so my goal is to kind of start pushing in that direction, kind of opening our market and just seeing, hey, there's a better way to do these things.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like as far as being busy, you're busy for a reason because of all of those things that you're saying. It's creating healthy spaces, being advanced in technologies that you're using, conducting things with integrity. If you answer your phone, like you answer my calls in 2 seconds, you reply to every single text message. Like, I feel like that is always what sets people apart. Is a lot of people talk a good game of like, this is how we operate, but then don't deliver. You do all of the things. You talk a good game and you deliver the game as well. And that's why I appreciate you, and that's why I trust you. So I wish you all the best. I know you're going to achieve everything you set out to do. If you are looking for a home remodel, or I mean, even a state-of-the-art new build in your future, give Tom and Caliber Home Loans, not Caliber Home Loans, Caliber Homes. Don't call them. Don't call them.
I've been subpoenaed once or twice for them.
Caliber Homes a call. Tom's amazing, and he will take very good care of you. So
thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you
Thanks for having me.
Oh
it was a
God,
pleasure.
I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You were fabulous.